Give a bit of an update on the Spyderco Nilakka. Done some work with it for the last few days. Using it in the kitchen, it's just been a pleasure to use as a small paring utility style knife. And again, what I want to make, to try to make this as drastic a comparison as I can, is this is a custom from Phil Wilson. It's a Coyote Meadow, really nice knife. Phil normally uses full flat grinds, relatively thin stock, distal taper, and his edges are around 5 to 10 thousandths thick, usually around 15 degrees per side. And he's well respected for the level of cutting ability of his knives. The Nilakka has full height flat grind, very nice distal taper, swedge, and the edge, the secondary bevel, is mainly a buffing line and is only around a 1,000th thick or less. So using this, peeling potatoes, cutting the ends off carrots, peeling turnips, it's absolutely a pleasure in the fact that it's almost effortless and the control is just very high. It's a joy to work with. I mean, every now and again you'll see me using knives in the kitchen, from big bowies to sort of tactical fighting type knives to, large brush knives. And again, it's just to get a feel for performance and have a bit of enjoyment. But this is a knife that I actually would pick as a small paring utility style knife in the kitchen. Just absolutely superb because of the level of cutting ability. It makes the work effortless and the control is very high. I don't know how many T's I just put in effortless, but there's a bunch of them. In regards to edge durability, as I noted, after I de-stressed the edge, sharpened it, it formed a relatively large burr on the 1000 grit stone last time I'm talking about, so I had to knock that off, re-sharpen it again. No issues in the kitchen, usually cut on a wooden or cutting board, sometimes I use plastic, held up perfectly fine. So major improvement. I did a round of edge retention cutting on cardboard. I normally use 1/8 ridged cardboard. I cut about 250 meters. The performance was decent, but it was basically what I'd call a class 1 type steel, sort of on the high end of that, but well under below what it should be for S30V at this hardness with what you would assume is a sensible heat treatment. However, I suspect that this is still not 100% in regards to being on quality steel. And there's more information on the edge retention testing and stuff in the links down below if you want some more details on what I mean by class 1 and how I'm actually calculating the sharpness and doing all that stuff. And the reason why I say that I don't think I'm 100% there yet is that this time when I sharpened it on a 1000 grit stone, the edge formed 100% clean. There was no burr. And when I took it to an 8000 grit finish and looked at it under 50 times magnification, the edge was much more crisp, much more uniform compared to the last time. So I still think I wasn't 100% last time, and though there was a major improvement, I went from basically making 1 or 2 cuts into cardboard and complete edge failure to this time where I made, literally like 100 cuts into cardboard, and I started to see some chipping on the microscopic scale. So drastic improvement, but still I don't think it's 100%. But again, very positive, and it's starting to come around. So I think the next thing will be use it again for about another week or so, just light work in the kitchen, cardboard, paper, that type of deal, some plastics and woods, and then run another check on the cardboard again and see if I can get better edge retention. Another thing that I might do is take my Coyote Meadow and see if I have the patience to plane this down and get the edge to around 1,000th or so. The problem is this is CPM 10V. It's extremely difficult to grind And the other thing is, when you get to a very, very thin edge, you have to be ultra careful about not overheating it. So you have to grind really slow, use lots of coolant on the belt and on the knife, unless you have a dedicated wet grind system, which I don't at the moment. So I may do that because it'd be kind of interesting to compare what should be a sort of uppercase scenario in terms of blade performance, because Phil takes a lot of time and a lot of care and does very small scale heat treatment, maybe even one knife at a time. So he's getting sort of, the least amount of problems that you can get in terms of heat treatment, and then see what this knife would behave like, again, with a very small secondary edge bevel around 1,000th or so. But it is a massive amount of work to get that down there. I'm not 100% sure if I'll be curious enough to try that. But again, in the meantime, as a second update, because there was a lot of people who was asking me how this was coming out, massive improvement over the first round, and this time when I sharpened it, again, improvement, smaller, but still there, which shows me that I'm moving towards quality steel, and this is looking to be a really nice knife. And again, what I want to say again, use again a few more times, see if I can fit them in, is that you really have to give, or I do anyway, respect for Spyderco for coming out with a rather extreme design. As I said, people will be complaining about, manufacturers overbuilding edges, making them too thick, using too high of an angle to sort of give them a comfort zone in terms of damage. And Spyderco really threw all that out the window with this and just said, forget all that. Let's just make a knife that cuts very well, and let's, tell people that's what it's made to do and see what happens. So respect for going to a rather extreme stance. Would have been nice to see him use a steel which is geared more towards edge stability, but there's marketing to take into account there. And you can see, as I've been sharpening flat to the blade, I'm eating away at the logo and the edges on the blade. So that's going to happen when you sharpen the whole profile, obviously.